Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We are taking a completely impartial look at a seriously radical alternative timeline for the history of our planet. It's known as the Small Bang Theory, or SBT for short. Now, what we're going to do today is step entirely inside the logic of this source material to explore its wild alternative timeline. And specifically, we're going to focus heavily on what this geological model supposedly meant for the evolution of Earth's flora and fauna. I mean, think about it. How exactly did plants and animals survive, adapt, and transform in a world that, according to this theory, literally exploded from the inside out? Get ready, because we're about to rethink everything from towering ancient ferns to the absolute weirdest creatures in the deep sea. Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever looked at a picture of a deep-sea anglerfish, or maybe a giant squid, and just wondered, why on earth do these bizarre, alien-looking creatures even exist? Well, the source material actually uses this exact biological mystery as a jumping-off point to challenge established evolutionary timelines. It suggests that these creatures aren't just weird, specialized adaptations to the deep sea. Instead, they are the survivors of an ancient global catastrophe that completely reset the biological stage. To make sense of the biology, we first gotta neutrally define the geology this text proposes. The Small Bang Theory argues that for hundreds of millions of years, the Earth did not look anything like the blue marble we know today. Instead, it was completely encased in a solid 60-kilometer-thick granite crust. It was essentially a giant pressurized pressure cooker. And according to the text, this immense internal pressure just kept building up over 475 million years, until exactly 66 million years ago when the crust couldn't hold it anymore and violently expanded. In this explainer, we're focusing strictly on how this proposed environmental pressure cooker supposedly shaped the animal and plant world. Section 1, Life Before the Bang. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive difference between the accepted scientific view and the SBT model. In standard geology, the ancient Earth had deep oceans, shifting seasons, and these highly dynamic habitats that really drove evolution forward. But in the SBT model, the source describes a completely flat, monotonous global habitat. No deep oceans anywhere, just endless shallow swamps, stagnant lakes, and unchanging forests with a maximum depth of maybe 500 meters. And because there was no axial tilt and no moon yet, there were absolutely no seasons and no tides. According to the text, this thick, completely unvarying environment actually physically dictated how animals and plants evolved. The atmosphere was incredibly dense, high pressure, and super humid. Because the air was so thick, the source claims pterosaurs didn't even need massive wingspans. They could literally just glide on tiny wings through this dense, soupy air. The dinosaurs themselves are described by the text as dumph, which translates essentially to sluggish or dull. I mean, in a world with constant global warmth, endless swamps, and zero seasonal changes, they didn't need to develop clever evolutionary strategies or migrate. They just lazily grazed on the same endless, unvarying ferns in a highly stable greenhouse. It was basically a biologically boring paradise. Section 2, the 5 mass extinctions. Just to ground ourselves, here's the standard timeline of the 5 mass extinctions. We've got the Ordovician, Devonian, Permian, Triassic, and finally the Cretaceous extinction, right at that 66 million years ago mark. Now, while mainstream science generally links these to earthbound volcanic events or specific asteroid impacts, the SBT source radically reinterprets the cause of every single one of these biological bottlenecks. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the text claims debris from other planets caused these earlier extinctions. For instance, the source claims that a small bang over on Uranus sent massive traces of ice hurtling to Earth during the Ordovician period. This supposedly froze those shallow swamps out of nowhere, shattered primitive plant life, and forced early marine animals to adapt to land just to survive. Later on, during the Permian extinction, the text claims glowing, fiery debris from Venus hit the Earth. The sudden intense heat selectively roasted ancient insects right in the air and boiled inflexible shelled life in the shallow lakes. So off-world events were radically filtering the evolutionary tree long before Earth's own bang. Section 3, Survival in the Catastrophe. So what happened at the 66 million year mark? According to the SBT, the physical breakdown of the Earth happened in rapid, violently destructive steps. That 60-kilometer-thick granite crust finally ruptured, primarily around the equator. The incredibly thick, high-pressure primitive atmosphere, literally the very air that allowed those heavy pterosaurs to fly, was instantly blown right out into space, completely replaced by our much thinner modern atmosphere. Then the sudden expansion of the planet created massive, deep rifts that would become the basalt ocean floors. In a single geological instant, the monotonous, shallow swamps and ancient, unbroken forests that the dinosaurs completely relied on were wiped out. So if the entire global habitat was just suddenly shattered, who actually made it out alive? The source material outlines a highly specific biological survival profile. To make it through the small bang, an organism needed the ability to fast for years, since the entire food chain collapsed overnight. Animals needed the capability to burrow deep underground to escape the surface inferno, or the adaptability to suddenly transition into totally new aquatic environments. Remember those sluggish, dull dinosaurs we mentioned earlier? The text argues they simply lacked these exact traits. They were too specialized for the old world, but small, burrowing mammals, and highly adaptable plant seeds capable of lying dormant through the inferno, managed to shelter on unbroken continental fragments and actually survive the bottleneck. Section 4. Origin of the Deep Sea Monsters. So the crucial point here is captured in a specific concept from the source, a term that translates to evolutionary scrap. The theory neutrally explains that extreme genetic mutants, biology's outcasts, are actually the true inheritors of the deep sea. Think about it like a little mini-story. In the old, shallow, sunlit swamps before 66 million years ago, extreme genetic mutations were completely doomed. If a fish was born with bizarre pressure adaptations or strange glowing appendages, it would die really quickly in a 500-meter deep, warm lake, right? They were evolutionary outcasts. But when the Earth's crust suddenly ruptured, creating these pitch-black, freezing, incredibly high-pressure ocean trenches, these previously doomed mutants perfectly slotted right into the harsh new depths. According to the SBT, the deep sea didn't slowly evolve these monsters over millions of years. Rather, the sudden, violent creation of the deep sea provided an instant, ready-made sanctuary for biology's scrap. Section 5. Evolution in the New Paradigm. Let's move to and see how this builds a completely new evolutionary paradigm. The small bang supposedly knocked the Earth off its axis, which created seasons. The debris thrown up into space formed the moon, instantly creating lunar tides. And that shattered crust drifted into separated continents. The source argues that this suddenly fractured, highly dynamic environment forced life to abandon its ancient sluggishness once and for all. Animals and plants now had to survive freezing winters, forcing trees to literally invent the process of shedding leaves, and forcing animals to migrate or grow fur. They had to cross vast oceans and compete in highly localized, isolated habitats. This sudden, intense environmental stress is exactly what the text claims forced the rapid evolution of the complex, clever life we see today. To wrap up this explainer, we are left with a seriously fascinating biological premise. The small bang theory proposes that evolution wasn't just this slow, steady, predictable climb. Instead, it was a desperate reaction to a singular planetary explosion that fundamentally changed the rules of life literally overnight. It asks us to look at the animals and plants around us not just as the products of gradual change, but as the ultimate scrappy survivors of a completely shattered world. So what do you think? Does a sudden cataclysmic shift in a planet's physical structure hold the true secret to the immense biological diversity of the world right outside your window? It's absolutely a provocative thought to leave you with, and one that makes you look at both geology and biology in a completely different light. Thanks for exploring this with us.